Hello everyone, this is a Twins Destruction back with another video, and today we are going to be talking about the Isu messages that were left in Assassin's Creed Origins. One you find in the campaign, and the other 5 you find throughout Egypt. And I'm going to be bringing up main points from these messages, not really deciphering them fully by playing them aloud for you to listen, but I'm just going to be talking about key points that I thought were interesting. So message number 1 starts out talking about simulations. These simulations are the numbers which list possible futures. This is a technology made by the first civilization to list possible futures because they were worried about the end of the world, and they were rightfully so because they saw that a solar flare was coming towards Earth, and they tried multiple ways to stop this. If you played Assassin's Creed 3, Juno actually explained the multiple ways that she tried to stop the solar flare, but obviously they didn't work and they ended up dying. And the message continues by saying that they were searching for Desmond using the code. So like in Assassin's Creed 2, whenever Minerva and Jupiter were talking to Ezio, they were talking to Desmond through Ezio. So they were using the code to get to Desmond so he can go to the Grand Temple, and so on and so forth. The word code keeps coming up, and it comes up in later messages as well. I'm going to come back to this on what this means, but just keep it in mind. I'm going to butcher this, but they mention Zhuang Zhu, who is a Chinese philosopher from 2,000 years ago, and how he had a dream about him being a butterfly. This is put in to talk about perspective and how reality may not be as we think it is. And they also talk about Plato's cave and Eliza, the computer program, because computer programs can be just as convincing as real people. And Plato's cave, it's all perception of reality. So you may think you're talking to a person, but you're talking to a computer. Or with Plato's cave, you may think you're in freedom, but in reality, you have no freedom and you're just sitting in a cave wall. Overall, this first message talked about how simulations are convincing, and they mentioned the bleeding effect and how it's similar to the numbers because the bleeding effect makes you feel like you're actually there in the Animus, and the numbers make you feel like you're actually witnessing future possibilities. So as these messages go on, they start to be more and more in-depth, talking about the numbers. So this message number 2 is a perfect explanation. And the code is like human language. It says that the code is like human language, and they can read it like human language. This is also where the first 2 backwards words come up, and they both say the word time. 2 backwards phrases that start out the saying break the code and stories.
Break the code. Break the node. Stories.
And then they also quoted Brutus. A doorway that is also a puzzle. We must find the solution. That was whenever he went to the Colosseum vault. And all of this, again, is talking about like more or less perspective in how they failed, because it says, quote, we failed at modifying a line, adding a single dot. They wanted to change the future. Like I said in Assassin's Creed 3, whenever they tried to witness possible futures, they tried building towers to block the solar flare. They tried using like the ring from Assassin's Creed 3, the piece of Eden, the shard. They tried building a shield to block the solar flare, just even a city, even a quarter of the Earth, but it didn't work. So they kept trying to see multiple outcomes, but they couldn't change the line. The line is time. It goes in a straight line and nothing can stop it. They can't add a dot. A dot would be saving the world, but they couldn't add the dot. So, like Brutus says, a doorway that is also a puzzle, we must find a solution. That's kind of like a theory on them. Like the puzzle is solving how to save everyone on Earth, so they must find a solution. And then they also says stories, the word stories twice, backwards. They also said, quote, you cannot grasp time, and quote, something must change. So it becomes more and more apparent as these messages go on that they are talking to Layla, not to Bayek. Just like they talked to Desmond through Ezio, they're talking to Layla through Bayek. So segment 4 opens up talking about December 21st, 2012, and how Desmond sacrificed himself to save the world. It has a backwards recording of this.
Collapse. The wave.
Then it says, quote, we thought that would have been enough until it wasn't. Time is unyielding. It always corrects itself. So this is saying that they thought going through time, using the numbers to go through time, to tell Desmond to save the world would have been enough to stop the end of the world. But it isn't. Time corrects itself. Time wants to be right. So when you defy it, it defies you back by fixing itself. It will. So Desmond stops the end of the world, but time will recorrect itself to create a new end of the world. So it says, linear continuity is a simulation that allows for variations. Within are nodes, like choke points. Nodes are choke points. So within linear continuity are choke points. Despite the, quote, different possibilities, the nodes break it all down into one possibility. So it just makes it really confusing. The nodes are like time trying to correct itself. So it tries to break it down into one possibility rather than, like Desmond, changing the future. The wave function, this is a quote, the wave function collapses the paths into nodes, which branch out again and again. It says, can you feel the wave collapsing, trying to course correct Desmond's act of defiance? Again, that is talking about how time is trying to recorrect itself after Desmond stopped the world from ending. Then it says, quote, the incoming node needs for the world to end. Then it goes on explaining world-shattering events that almost ended the world. Like 100 years ago, World War I was thought to have ended the world. It was so drastic and different in the way of how war was treated and how many deaths there were. It was thought to be the war to end all wars. And just in general, they thought like the world would just change after World War I was over. It also goes on to say something about V2's vaporized dwellings. I couldn't really find what that meant. So if you know what that means, please leave a comment down below. It goes on to list more things like the Los Alamos Lab, which was a huge help in the Manhattan Project. If you don't know, the Manhattan Project created the atomic bomb from World War II, and which went on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Again, people thought that nukes would have been the end of the world. Then there is the Serpukhov 15 incident of 1983. This was a station in Russia that was to look out for incoming nukes from the United States. And there was a malfunction on the server, and the Russians thought that nukes were coming, but the officer stationed, took the chance that they weren't nukes and that they were just cloud formations that were messing up with the server, and that's what it was. The United States did not send nukes. It was a malfunction. So he took that chance and did not send nukes back, and most likely saved the world from utter destruction. Then lastly, they mentioned the Doomsday Clock, which is a unique way of saying that the world is almost over. In Chicago, they have this clock that every time something happens that is likely to end the world, and they move it up a half a minute or a second or 30 seconds, whatever. And whenever it strikes 12, they say that the world is going to end. So, like, if there's another terrorist attack, they move it up a minute. If there's another bombing, they might move it up a couple seconds. So then it ends with the node is near. So all these nodes or world-shattering events like World War I, Los Alamos Lab making the bombs, the Doomsday Clock, all of these are things that were destined to happen but didn't destroy the world like they should have. And so this, along with Desmond's Defiance, are nodes that didn't end the world but should have. So this is hinting at that there's going to be another node. There's going to be another end of the world very, very soon. Alright guys, this is the end of part 1. Stay tuned for the next video. It will be posted very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more content.